Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Film Room Podcast. This is episode 23. I'm your host, Joe Baress, along with my co-host, Joby Fawcett. Joby, it's Monday afternoon. How you doing?
We're doing okay, Joe. You know, it's a very big day. We have the inauguration of the President of the United States and Donald Trump, and we have celebrating Martin Luther King Day. And I am somber and licking my wounds from what was an extremely emotional loss for the Los Angeles Rams yesterday to the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC divisional playoffs. And now that my NFL season is over, I can move on to really fully focus on the high school basketball and swimming seasons.
That's right, Joby. And we have a national championship game tonight.
Yeah, Joe, I thought we were going to be able to kind of get that out of our mind since is not playing, but I guess there's a strong enough Notre Dame fan base in Northeast Pennsylvania to carry us through tonight.
Yeah, exactly. There's a bit of a contingent, so we'll see how it goes. You know who I'll be rooting for.
Yes, absolutely.
So right now, as we always do, we're going to throw it to our athlete of the week. It is Sophia Talutto of Dunmore basketball. Sophia, how we doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us. So what Sophia did to earn the award, she had 28 points in a win over Holy Cross and added 21 points in a win over Honesdale. I believe 9 3-pointers total across those two games, which is 9 more 3-pointers than I hit in my entire high school. So Sophia, just to kind of start off there, you know, you guys are obviously great tradition at Dunmore. You guys are having another great season. What do you think of the team's performance so far this season?
Honestly, I think we've been living up to the expectation, which is kind of just our personal goal as a team. You know, we have a very tight-knit community in Dunmore, so I feel like a lot of people in the community have a really high expectation for us. So our goal as a team is just to kind of like exceed those expectations throughout the year. So I think we've been doing a pretty good job of that so far.
Sophia, you've kind of developed along these last 4 years. You were a big part of some very successful teams, a state championship team as well. And you've kind of carved a nice little place in history at the school. What does that mean to you when you're going to be able to see your name and up there on a banner as a 1,000-point scorer and as a member of a multiple-time championship program there at Dunmore?
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot to me just to see all the hard work and dedication I put in, you know, kind of pay off is really, really cool. And I know it means a lot to my family, to my friends about how much I succeed at Dunmore. So I feel like my ultimate goal as a basketball player in general was to do what I have done at Dunmore so far. So I think it's a really good feeling, and I'm really happy about it.
Absolutely. It seems like Joby's bird wants to ask you a question.
Yes, Joe, I want to correct you. I have 2 parakeets that as soon as they hear my voice, they tend to want to talk back. So I apologize for that. So,
no, you're good.
Sophia, they weren't asking you a question. They were just saying hi to me.
So, Sophia, kind of building off Joby's question a little bit, you've played with some great players, obviously, Ciera Toomey, Mariah Murray.
Yeah.
What have you is there anything you've pulled from them to get to this point? Now you're the senior. Anything you learned from them?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Ciera Toomey is probably one of my best friends till this day. So I feel like, you know, she's inspired me to be the best basketball player I could be without even knowing it. Just to see her and Mariah's succession throughout their years at high school really just inspired me to be great and inspired me to be as big of a leader as I am on the team this year. So I feel like they have impacted my game a lot more than they think.
Sophia, so, you know, you mentioned to me at the media day to start the season about expectation, and you touched on it already here in this interview, but the season got off to a little bit of a strange start for Dunmore. You had a very difficult game against Valley View early on, and kind of tell me what that does to you as a team, and you being a senior leader, how much you want to kind of reflect back on that and use that game as motivation for, you know, example, what did you learn from that and how has that helped you develop as a team this year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we went into that Valley View game thinking the outcome would definitely be different. But honestly, that game, even on record, it shows as a loss. I feel like it was kind of a win in our books because it refocused us like nothing else. I feel like the next practice after that game was very intense. A lot of us were humbled to be, at rock bottom basically. So I feel like we kind of just got together as a team and focused on the things we can control in the games because there's a lot of things that are uncontrollable in basketball, but there is a lot more things that you can control, which is like your work ethic, your consistency and effort and all of that. So I feel like it refocused us a lot and, really brought us down to earth because we came in thinking that we were this best team in the world. So I feel like facing adversity in the beginning of the season was positive for us.
Absolutely. Sophia, you came right onto this team, obviously your freshman, sophomore year and were fantastic. Now these last 2 years, you've been the leader of this team. What has it been like being the absolute leader, especially in your senior season this year?
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot to me just because of how hard I work. I know I work very hard in the off season, during the summer, just in general. So to be the best on the team, to be that person that everyone looks to is great. I mean, I feel like it's just an opportunity for me and I couldn't have done it without my coaching staff, my teammates around me, because they put me in the best position possible to be as successful as I am. So I couldn't have done it without them. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to touch on that a little bit, Sophia. Last week you had a couple of good games, including the one against Division II newcomer Honesdale, which is a team that you haven't traditionally played that often. And that's a very talented team, very well coached there with Joe Reno. And that was an intense game for you. And it really was a total team effort while you get a lot of the accolades. I thought this team really played well in that game.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like even though a lot of the shine is coming on me just because of my points, I feel like all of my teammates really have impacted the game more than they think. With just assisting me, getting the rebounds, getting very good defensive plays. I feel like they're not getting that much recognition, which they should be. And same thing with our coaching staff. They put us in positions to be successful. So without all of them, it wouldn't have been possible to beat Honesdale because they're a great program. They're a great team. They're very well coached, and I know a bunch of them personally. So they're a bunch of great players. But yeah, it was a really hard fought game, and I'm really happy we won it.
Yeah, speaking of teammates, sometimes I like to ask, athletes, about their teammates. Let me ask you, I mean, is there a specific teammate that has impressed you the most this season by their growth?
Honestly, a lot of them have been exceeding all the expectations that they have put on themselves, but I think one that sticks out to me the most is Amanda Dempsey. I feel like she's one of my best friends. So seeing her, being successful this year and, kind of just being that second leading scorer for us is really important to me and to her. It's really cool to see as a best friend and as a teammate to see her be as successful as she's being this year. So I would definitely say Amanda has really bumped it up this year with her game. And even Michelle Naito, a freshman coming in, she's starting fresh in high school. So I feel like she's definitely been a key component to us too. She's the post guard for us. She's getting a lot of rebounds for us and just playing really, really heavy defense on great players. Like in Honesdale, she played Natalie Goldstein. She did a great job. But yeah, I feel like everyone, Jackie Brown, Lena Conti, everyone has really stepped up their game this year.
Sophia, so now that you're a senior, you've had the unique opportunity being a multiple year starter, playing in these big, high profile games on the big stages with a revolving door of teammates. But how special is it for you now? Because I can remember back many, 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 many years ago when I played as a senior, you kind of wanted to be your time as a class, as a group. How special is that for you in that sense now that it is your final year and a year you're kind of want to make memorable in your own right?
Yeah, I feel like being a senior this year is kind of surreal. I mean, I've always kind of felt like the younger one, if that makes sense. And I don't know, at my senior year so far, I feel like it's just been going by so fast. So I feel like just taking in every single moment throughout the rest of the season, throughout the rest of my high school career is very important. But all of the memories I made last year, my sophomore year, and my freshman year aren't going to go to waste either. I mean, being on the Lady Bucks program, being a part of it is very, very important. And I feel like the group of girls I've been surrounded with throughout my entire high school career has just been such an impact on me and my life. So I'm definitely going to take all of that into college when I go to college next year, but I'm definitely going to miss a lot of them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's talk about your college decision. Obviously, you're going to the University of Scranton, joining that excellent program there. I believe they're number 3 in the nation right now, or number 2, depending on what poll you're looking at. But, you had 1 year under Ben O'Brien, I believe. Obviously, he's the University of Scranton coach, and now you've been under Ciera Toomey. What have each of those coaches kind of brought to you, bring to your game, and what are you so excited about taking the next step at college?
Yeah, I mean, starting off my freshman year with Coach O'Brien, I really didn't know what to expect, but he probably has impacted my game the most out of any coach I've ever been coached by, just because of how he coaches. Like, he doesn't let things slide. He lets you know when you're doing something wrong. He lets you know when you're in the wrong position. So I feel like him being so critical on things that need to be right has really impacted me to see like the little details in plays in the game, just like in basketball in general. So he's definitely impacted it a lot. And Coach Toomey, same thing with her. I mean, she lets me know when I'm doing something wrong. She's not afraid to tell me when I'm in the wrong in situations. And I feel like that's just really humbled me as a player. And she's made me very successful. I feel like she's put me in positions to be successful on the court and off the court even. But yeah, both of those coaches have really impacted me.
All right, Sophia, I'm about to ask you, your dad is Joe, right?
Yes.
Okay, so full disclosure, when you go home later or when you get a chance to see him, I just want you to know as an athlete, your father hit me so hard one time in a high school football game. I was stars for about 3 weeks. So I imagine you get a certain level of toughness from him.
Yes, I do.
So you can tell him I did not forget how hard he hit me that time back in 1987. But when I watch you play, Sophia, I do see that about you. Do you take a lot of pride in kind of following in his footsteps? Because listen, he was an all-region football player. He was a physical guy. He was a tough kid, and you bring that to the basketball court.
Yeah, I feel like having him be my dad, he actually, gives me great advice about being a great basketball player and just a great person in general. So I knew he was a great, great football player back in his day, but I didn't know he was that good. I didn't know he was all regional, all that.
Oh, he was intense.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he remembers. We had a heck of a couple of football games during our careers. We graduated the same year, and so I had battled him all the way from when I was a freshman through when I was a senior. And anytime I see you play, it just reminds me a lot of the intensity he played with in football. So I just wanted to let you know that. And certainly when you see him later, you tell him I won't forget that hit.
Okay, I'll tell him.
Joby, what's funny is I feel like a lot of the athletes we've had on here, their fathers have like brutally tackled you during football.
Yeah, I had a storied career of getting hit pretty hard back in the high school days.
There was no concussion protocol back then, Joby. So
no, I can tell you some stories, Joe.
I believe it. Sophia, just to actually build off the question that Joby just asked you, I haven't seen you play a ton, but the games I have seen you, the one thing I've been really impressed with is just your confidence. It just seems like you have this confidence ever since, even when you were, freshman, sophomore, you do not hesitate when you're on the court at all. And it's a huge part of your game. How do you have that confidence? Like, how do you grow that confidence?
Yeah. Honestly, I've read this one book. It's called The Inner Game of Tennis. And throughout the game throughout the book, it kind of just teaches me and teaches everyone that you need to trust your own ability. And that comes with just working really hard and working out. So I know what I can do just because of how hard I work out on my own with trainers in practice, just in general. So I feel like I've really just gained my own confidence by just working out on my own and knowing what I could do and trusting my own ability.
All right, Sophia, here's the thing for you now. I believe the winning streak is getting close to 90 games in the league. Okay.
Yeah.
I know Coach Toomey probably doesn't want to ever talk about it or bring it up, but it certainly is a source of pride, I'm sure, for you as a player.
Yep.
But how do you keep that from being a distraction and maintaining your focus as you try to navigate through what is going to be the second half of the Lackawanna Division II schedule?
Yeah, I feel like as a team, we kind of just focus on one game at a time. You know, Coach O'Malley, our assistant coach, he kind of just tells us before each game, we just have to go 1-0 today. You know, we just have to go 1-0 and that's it. And then we'll focus on the next game. So I think taking one game at a time and just focusing on each team that we play day by day is what's going to be really important from, you know, like not focusing in on the fact that we're almost on a 90-day streak or 90-game streak for the league. So yeah.
My last thing for you, Sophia, is I saw in your Athlete of the Week interview that some athletes you admire. One I'm interested in is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You know, I feel like the NBA is in a weird transition of like, you know, we've got the people like your LeBrons and Stephs and KD and, you know, some of the guys, some of these younger stars maybe aren't getting the popularity that those guys are kind of holding on to. What is it about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's game that you appreciate?
Honestly, I think it's just his confidence. I see him as a player and his interviews. He's just always so confident in himself and his ability. And honestly, like his mid-range game is out of this world. I mean, he's scoring like almost 30 points per game, and he's not even playing full games sometimes. You know, like the last time he played the Cavs game, he only played like 25 minutes or something, and he scored 40 points. Yeah. So I feel like, and he's like I hope he's the MVP this year, but he's just a very humble player in basketball, and he'll never tell you that he thinks that he's going to be the MVP, but everyone kind of around him knows that he's going to be, but he's just a very humble athlete. So I think I admire that most about him.
All right, Sophia, before I let you go, seeing that I had mentioned that your dad was an all-region football player, do you have a favorite football team? I didn't get a chance to see your interview yet.
For college, it's definitely Penn State, and then NFL, Steelers, definitely.
Okay, so you aren't really as focused in on the playoffs now because you, much like Joe and myself, no longer have a team playing.
Yeah, I definitely won't even be watching it. I hate both teams.
Yeah, this is going to be a rough couple of weeks for me as a football fan. There's no question about that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I'll enjoy. Maybe I'll be able to catch the Dunmore Lady Bucks. I enjoyed covering you last year a couple of times. It was a lot of fun. So maybe I'll get away from football and watch you guys instead.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
Thanks so much for joining us, Sophia. We appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you guys so much.
And Sophia, tell your dad he actually now, because I've remembered playing so hard against him, he has to owe me a steak or something. Okay?
All right. I'll tell him.
All right, Sophia. Thanks a lot for being with us.
Yep. Thank you guys.
All right. That was Athlete of the Week, Sophia Talutto. Joby, just, you know, a Dunmore girls basketball team, it's weird to say, like, I feel like they're kind of like, you know, flying under the radar, which is weird.
No, don't say that. Don't say
I'm just saying because, like, you know, we talk about Scranton Prep.
No, here's what happens, Joe. It's what the discussion is going on concerning the National Football League most valuable player. Okay? People talk about fatigue. Mm-hmm. And there are a couple of things that are guaranteed in this world, Joe. One is death. The other is taxes. And the third is Dunmore girls basketball team being the best team in Division II or / Division III. I mean, look, we talk about it a lot. When we used to have an office, we would always discuss, you know, it starts in the bitty basketball there in Dunmore, Joe. Those kids just take it more serious when they're younger. And you hate to say it that way, but the programs, you can go back to even when I was in high school, when Coach Toomey was a player in high school. She was incredible. And she was a big part of this surge in Dunmore success in the girls basketball when it really started back in the 80s. And now she's kind of carried it forward with obviously her children and then her as a coach. But yeah, and they had Ross Machaco as a coach there. You had Ben O'Brien as a coach there, and now Ciera Toomey. It's just a great feeder system that just fuels this, and you hear it, the passion in her voice when you talk to Sophia Talutto about what the program means to her and what it means to play hard and play for championships. And they all seem to do it through the system. And it's a recycle type of thing, Joe, and done a great job there in Dunmore.
You're absolutely right, Joby. And so maybe we could, let's talk a little bit about the top 10 polls here that were just.
Okay, Joe. Yeah, because I do want to know, as you're going to get into that, you could do the boys first if you want. I don't want to throw you up your rundown, but so the boys will play on Monday night and the girls will play on Tuesday, and that'll finish the first half.
Got it.
Now, we don't play the season in the Lackawanna League in halves anymore, where there's a first half winner and a second half winner. They'll just dive right into the second half here later on this week. And the reason I want to point this out, Joe, is I brought it up in the notes today in the Times-Tribune and on the Times-Tribune.com. So in the first half of the regular season, the boys played the Monday-Thursday schedule and the girls played the Tuesday-Friday schedule. In the second half, the girls will play that Monday-Thursday schedule and the boys will play the Tuesday-Friday schedule. So after tonight and Tuesday, after Monday and Tuesday night, we're going to flip it. So then the girls will take the Thursday night game and the boys will take Friday. So continue.
Got it. So, we've got the boys poll. We got Holy Cross still on top, Riverside number 2, Old Forge 3, Scranton 4, Scranton Prep 5, Abington Heights 6, Valley View 7, Delaware Valley 8, Dunmore 9, Wallenpaupack 10. That's the boys' top 10 rankings from the Times-Tribune. Joby, take us through a little bit of this week. What did we? Let's recap boys basketball last week.
Well, Joe, listen, the best way that I could describe it was chaos.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
And I think we talked about it on the last episode of the Film Room that we're at a time of the year, and you played high school basketball at Holy Cross, so you know. This is a time when teams, there's kind of a lag in some teams and there's a kind of a springboard for others, okay? And that's not to say that some teams won't recover and get back into the swing of things, but, again, we're past the halfway point. You can only play 22 games in a regular season, right? And now what do we have? Teams at 14, 15 games now already?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we saw some of that last week as you're playing within the league. You're not playing those non-league games anymore. You're focusing on these battles within the division. And it's a couple of quick observations in Division One, which we knew coming in, Joe, and we talked about it many times, a lot of balance in this division, okay? The Lackawanna League reconfigured and took the 4-division format and made it a 3-division format, and that brought Wallenpaupack and DV up into the Division One, and it really has elevated the competitiveness of that division, okay? That certainly played out last week. A couple of things really quickly. Scranton and Scranton Prep are now tied for first place, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Scranton Prep definitely has righted the ship after a last-second loss to Scranton earlier in the regular season, okay? Scranton seemed like it was the team to beat at that point until it took a long road trip out to Delaware Valley, and Delaware Valley beat them by, 29 points?
Yeah.
That's a lopsided loss, Joe, and that's a tough loss that you have to try to overcome if you're Scranton.
Right.
That same night, Valley View, which had held the number 1 spot in the Times-Tribune high school basketball poll for several weeks after upsetting Holy Cross and starting the year 11-0, had a 29-point loss to Abington Heights.
Yep.
And so that really kind of put things into a strange – it makes voting for the top 10 in a very tough situation because how do you put Scranton Prep ahead of Scranton after Scranton has already beaten Scranton Prep? How do you put Delaware Valley behind Scranton when it beat them by 29 points? How do you put Abington Heights behind Valley View when Abington Heights went on the road and probably played its best game of the year.
Right.
At least its best half of the year in scoring 44 points, where it shot 16 of 23 from the floor and 8 of 11 from the three-point line in the first half. How do you put Abington Heights behind Valley View? And then you have to look at overall records. Abington Heights is only 6-7, and Valley View is 12-2. Is that just a hiccup? So there's a little bit of that going on there. But yeah, quick evaluation over the entire top 10. Holy Cross and Riverside have separated themselves a little bit. Okay. But Old Forge is in at number 3. And the reason that's an interesting spot, Joe, is because for the better part of the first half of the year, those Division I teams, Scranton, Valley View, which has a win over Old Forge, Scranton Prep, Abington Heights, they got a little bit more attention over Old Forge. But if you look at Old Forge's resume, and I know we do this in college football because we're always arguing over which team should be in the Final 12, Old Forge lost to Holy Cross by 6, right?
Yep.
Okay. And lost to Riverside in overtime.
Right.
So those are two pretty impressive performances. Now, both of those games were at home. That'll make things a little bit more challenging for Old Forge in the second half of the schedule. But I think that follows suit. I think you have Holy Cross 1, Riverside 2, and Holy Cross 3. Now, the teams in Division 1 are not going to be happy about that, but those 3 teams have certainly shown that they're very talented and very strong, on both ends of the floor. Holy Cross has beaten Scranton. Riverside has beaten Scranton head-to-head, so Holy Cross has also beaten Scranton Prep. So that's how that plays out there. And don't forget, Joe, later on this week, Holy Cross will play at Riverside.
Right.
On Friday night, a game I will probably attend and will cover via video and certainly online at the Times-Tribune.com. So we have some good matchups coming up moving forward, including Monday night's game between Scranton and Valley View. It would behoove both of those teams to show that Thursday last week was an anomaly and that both of those teams are worthy of their impressive overall records and that those losses were not a reflection of the talent or how they're playing at the moment.
Absolutely, Joby. It's all heating up, just like you predicted last week.
Yeah, right, that's generally what happens in basketball. You know that, Joe, as we get just part of January into February.
That's right, exactly. So breaking down a little bit of the girls' poll, Scranton Prep remained atop. That's the poll, of course. They're undefeated. Valley View is at 2 after a come-from-behind victory against Abington Heights last week. Dunmore, as we mentioned, 12-2. They are 3rd. Elk Lake, 4th. Scranton, 5. Honesdale, 6. North Pocono, 7. Abington Heights, 8th. Mountain View, 9. And Mid-Valley, 10th. Joby, anything to tackle here in the girls?
Not a lot of movement among the girls this week in the top 10 poll. If you look, Scranton Prep number 1, the Classics have dominated. Abington Heights gave you a pretty good scare last week, but Scranton Prep's clearly the class of the girls basketball in the Lackawanna League, and it's going to be in District 2, Class 4A. And again, I've said this, I'm on the record. I just don't know enough about the teams around the state. Right. But what I do know is that Scranton Prep last year went to the state final, and I think this team is playing much better than that team was playing last year at that time of the year. Okay? That being said, I'm not putting them in the state final yet because anything can happen.
You can't do that.
You know how I feel about that.
I do.
But if you're a fan of Scranton Prep and this team continues to improve and play the way that Bob Avila wants it to play, defensively being intense and forcing turnovers and converting those turnovers into fast breaks, they have the talent with Jenna Hillebrand and Bella Denenbaum and Maya Jenkins, Claire McGrath, Ashlyn Moore. This is a very veteran team, very determined team, got some depth coming off the bench. Very impressive so far through the 13, 14 games they've played. Okay. Valley View clearly has made a statement by coming back and beating Abington Heights. That's a big win for Valley View last week because Valley View has dominated its opponents except for Scranton Prep in the early going here. The only loss it has is against Scranton Prep. But that win against Abington Heights, where you fall behind on the road against a very good team, a very well-coached team, and you come back and win that in the fourth quarter, Cora Castellani, Giada Costa, very good performance by Valley View in that game, solidified its spot at number 2. Then you have some teams in there, Joe. Scranton. Elk Lake has done a great job. Remember last week, Elk Lake had the big win over Mountain View in Division 3. We know the resume that Mountain View has with Addison Kilmer there, the Class 1A State Player of the Year last year. And Elk Lake is obviously a very high-scoring team in Division 3, a lot of talent on that team. Leah Traver just being able to put up some big numbers there. So, this is a team that could make some noise as we finish up the regular season and certainly into the postseason. And, again, I think, with Dunmore, I know Sophia Talutto says, you got to take it one game at a time. And we talked already about the tradition of that program, which kind of fuels its intensity, and that winning streak does play a part in it. Very good performance against Honesdale. I was looking forward to seeing how Dunmore responded to that challenge. But I also came away, just looking at the numbers, pretty impressed with how Honesdale played as well. Very good team there. Well coached. Joe Reno doing a good job in his first year with the Lady Hornets. So some good basketball on the girls' side of it. But again, not a lot of movement in those ranked teams. But again, we're going to have that second half of the regular season play out here. So there are some matchups that will certainly impact those ratings moving forward.
Absolutely, Joby. And let's talk about some of the performances in basketball. I'll start with Natalie Goldstein from Honesdale girls basketball. She had 23 points, 14 rebounds, and 2 blocks in Honesdale's win over Mid-Valley. She added 19 points in that loss to Dunmore. But obviously she's an excellent player. She's come up in the top performances pretty much every week here. We touched on Sophia Talutto, obviously, was really impressed with, I shouldn't be surprised, but Addison Kilmer, Mountain View girls basketball, 29 points. She had 7 threes in a win over Forest City, added 16 points in a win over Montrose. We also had, as you mentioned, for number 1 Scranton Prep, Jenna Hillebrand. She scored 20 points in a win over Abington Heights, added 12 in a win over West. Chrissy Chiklinski, Scranton basketball, had 22 points in a win over Delaware Valley and added 16 points in a win over Wallenpaupack. Kylie Shingler, Elk Lake, as you had mentioned, off to a great start, had 26 points in a win over Lackawanna Trail, added 21 in a win over Susquehanna. Abigail Gellinger of Blue Ridge had 28 points in a win over Carbondale and 16 in a victory over Forest City. Cora Castellani of Valley View, she had 12 points in that victory over Abington Heights and added 15 points earlier in the week in a win over Delaware Valley. As far as the boys go, Jake Antolik of Lackawanna Trail, he had 15 points in a nice win, 50-39 over Elk Lake, and added 27 points in a great win over Montrose as well. So a nice week for Jake. Jerry Rose of Riverside, he had 24 points in a win over Lakeland, 22 points in a win over East Stroudsburg Notre Dame, and 11 points in a big win over Old Forge. We also had, I can't believe I waited this long, but Justin Blanding of Wallenpaupack, he had a game-high 23 points, including the 1,000th of his career in a 66-55 win over North Pocono. He also added 17 points in a loss to Scranton. Michael Hughes, Holy Cross, he had 21 points in Holy Cross win over Dunmore and added 18 points in a win over Western Wayne. Paxton Pingarelli of Blue Ridge had 31 points in Blue Ridge's win over Forest City and 16 in a win over Carbondale area. Nico Antonacci, former Athlete of the Week this year, guest of the podcast. He had 28 points in that big win over Old Forge. He also had 17 in a win over Lakeland and 22 in a win over East Stroudsburg, Notre Dame. Robbie Lucas of Abington Heights had 17 points in Abington Heights win over Valley View in that showdown that you spoke of. So those are just some of the great performances in basketball. Joby, anything else basketball-wise you want to touch on?
I just wanted to congratulate Justin Blanding from Wallenpaupack as well, Joe. No, I hadn't a chance to meet him last year. I went up to Wallenpaupack for a big game up there, and what an engaging young man he is. And he's been through a lot. He had a very difficult knee situation there where they couldn't quite figure out what was going on. It was giving him a lot of discomfort, and he was diagnosed with, just a little bit of a problem he has there in the knee and has some surgery, and he has certainly overcome that and played extremely well. And anytime you get a chance to talk to a young player of his age who reaches a milestone, and all he wanted to talk about was his teammates and his coaches, and he just didn't want to put the focus on himself. And he's just a nice young man, and you could just hear in his voice the joy he had of achieving this milestone. And he's now ranked 6th all-time in scoring at Wallenpaupack, and he's only the 9th player to achieve that milestone. So it was a pretty cool moment for him, and I was glad I got a chance to talk to him last week. And, Joe, also just a couple of things you touched on there. Some great performances last week in high school basketball, but wow, what a scoring ambush that Riverside's putting on teams.
Yeah.
What's that, their 6th 80-point performance of the year?
Exactly.
Saturday, my goodness gracious. So, yeah, Joe, this is really setting the stage for quite a matchup. I'll be interested to see how both teams respond on Friday, if they can get by tonight or Monday rather, to one, Riverside always plays well at home. That's going to be a very hostile environment, and it's just a different playing setting than the playing in the cozy confines of Holy Cross High School there, Joe. So we'll see how both teams respond. It's going to be a heck of a basketball game, that's for sure.
Absolutely. No, that'll be exciting. So, Joby, let's move on to high school wrestling. So last week there was some.
You saw another dandy, Joe.
I did see another dandy. Wallenpaupack at Abington Heights. Again, as I spoke about Abington Heights, this is a team that's been excellent over the last 5-6 years, and they, I feel like people, well, including myself, I thought they were going to have kind of a middle of the road year, but this team is excellent. They've really, groomed their younger guys, the guys who have been under the stars, that have graduated, like Caleb Marzolino, Austin Smith, Luke Sirianni from a few years ago. So, I mean, this is a team that's excellent, but it's Wallenpaupack is just, they really don't have many weaknesses up and down their lineup, if any at all. And it is just, it's tough to beat a team like that. Wallenpaupack's able to win that battle of unbeatens in Division I, I believe 39-24. Just, it's, Wallenpaupack is just an excellent team, and they have depth. Just to speak to that, at 285, they have 2 kids who are excellent wrestlers, Tyler Gallo and George Rafferty. Tyler Gallo, early in the season, had a big win, a big pin against West that was able to get them to this point where they're still undefeated in Division I. This week, George Rafferty won the wrestle off, so he got to wrestle at 285. He comes up with a pin. So it's and what's great about them is they're really good friends, and they, it's kind of a friendly rivalry, if you will, between the two of them, who gets to go. But whoever wins that wrestle off for the week, they are cheering and rooting for them to get that match. They're great friends. So obviously that's great to see. And, it speaks to the depth of Wallenpaupack. So at this point, after winning that match, they are really, really in the driver's seat. They clinched at least a share of the Division I title. They are going to face Scranton on Wednesday to wrap it up. I would be absolutely shocked if Wallenpaupack lost that match. So that's how big that Abington Heights win was to pretty much wrap up a division title for them. In Division II, Valley View kept pace with Honesdale. They are both 3-0 and heading toward a matchup on Wednesday for the Division II crown. No surprise here with Honesdale, obviously. I could say the same things about Honesdale that I say about Wallenpaupack. Strength up and down the lineup. There's no weaknesses there. There's depth. Same situation for that 172 weight class. Mason Avery and Duke Martin, they wrestle off every week for that spot. And it's a good problem to have, Duke Martin, if Duke Martin loses that wrestle off, he just wrestles at 189. He's got to go up in weight. So Mason Avery could be at the 172. And Duke Martin's been having a heck of a year. I believe it's only a sophomore. Mason Avery, a senior. So again, that speaks to the depth. But I want to give kudos to Valley View, Coach Brian Smith there. Valley View was 0-4 in Division II last year. They are now 3-0, coming up with big wins and very close wins against Western Wayne, Lackawanna Trail, and North Pocono. They've put themselves in position to potentially win a Division II title. Again, that's another one where Honesdale, I'd be shocked if Honesdale loses that, but that's why they wrestle the matches, Joby.
That's right, Joe.
As you say. But it's, regardless, it's a heck of an effort so far for this Valley View team. In Division III, last year, we had a showdown between Scranton Prep and Blue Ridge on the last day of the season. Both were undefeated. That scenario is played out again. One will be at Scranton Prep on Wednesday. And, this is a match that Scranton Prep won. I think it came down to maybe 3 points. So it was a close match. Blue Ridge will be looking to avenge that loss. So that should be interesting as well. So interesting week here to close out ultimately close out the league season in Division I, Division II, Division III. I haven't decided where I'm going yet, but I will be at one of these matches, either Valley View, Honesdale, or Scranton Prep, Blue Ridge. So, and after that, Joby, believe it or not, the regular season's coming to a close in wrestling. We'll be turning around, getting to the District 2 Team Duels tournament the following Wednesday, and we'll have a team champion the following Saturday. So, you know how it goes. Seasons move fast here. But yeah, that is what we're looking at in wrestling. Joby, you wrote a notebook. It will be in Tuesday's paper. We are recording this on Monday afternoon. Joby, what are we looking ahead to in swimming this week?
So as you mentioned too, Joe, we're getting close to the end of the regular season here. All of our sports, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, it does go by in the blink of an eye. But in swimming, we've got Elk Lake girls. We've had Hannah Howell here on the show.
Yep.
They'll be having their second matchup with an undefeated opponent on Tuesday afternoon at Abington Heights, as both teams come in, I believe, 5-0 on the season. Should be a really good, intense swim meet. You can remember back when we had Hannah on as a guest, she mentioned that she felt this girls program at Elk Lake finally turned the corner when it beat Abington Heights last year. And so this will be the rematch that I know Abington Heights is probably looking forward to as well, with some very talented swimmers. And, the Lady Comets have had a good season here, obviously by the 5-0 record, but also winning the girls team title at the Classic Relays at the University of Scranton 2 weeks ago. So should be a really good swim meet there with the girls. Delaware Valley will swim against Scranton later on this week. Scranton had a big win over Scranton Prep, ending the Cavaliers' undefeated season last week. So Delaware Valley's depth is going to be a problem for any team just going to pile up a lot of points based on number of swimmers in the events. But I look forward to that meet as well, just because it's a good, intense battle there between some of the top swimmers we have in the Lackawanna League. So some good things coming to a close here in the Lackawanna League for swimming as we move toward the Les Richards Championships and then the break into the District 2 Championships.
Absolutely, Joby. So anything else you want to touch on as far as high school goes?
We just real quick, congratulations to all the winners at the Ernie Shardle Invitational that was up at Tunkhannock last week, or this past weekend. But most importantly to West Scranton's Roy Ayala, who just had a tremendous meet, 2 individual victories, and also set a meet record. So he is a kid to watch as we move toward the postseason here in swimming.
Absolutely, Joby. Okay, so, oh, Joby, I don't know if we want to talk about this, but
go ahead, Joe. You're in charge of the show.
I feel like we need to talk about the Eagles game.
Okay.
So I feel terrible for you because I really thought, I think all these games, it's pretty easy to see where they all went wrong. And it's just, you could just look at the turnovers in every game, I feel like, and boom, there's your answer at who won the games. I thought the Rams had multiple chances to, take a lead in that game, get back in that game, and somehow still had a chance to win late in that game after being down 13 with like 4 minutes left or something like that. But, the Kyron Williams fumble, the Stafford fumble, there was just too much there to overcome, unfortunately. I don't know that the weather really helped either, but a lot of people in this area are very happy that the Eagles won. But Joby, what did you think about yesterday's game?
Well, Joe, in the National Football League, the margin for error is so slim when you get to this point of the year.
Right.
Okay. The key factors are always going to be turnovers.
Right.
Okay. But also missed opportunities. I think you and I have talked about this. I know your favorite player of all time is kicker Mason Crosby, but the NFL has to get out of this mode of kicking field goals because field goals are irrelevant at this stage. You have to score points. You have to score touchdowns. Yeah. I think the Bills found out that last night as well. Got down to the 2-yard line and then threw up on themselves and had to kick a field goal.
Right.
Well, that kept the Ravens in the game.
Yeah.
You could drop the hammer there if you score a touchdown.
Right.
The game is over. You've won the game. But yeah, the margin for error is very slim, and that certainly was the case in the Eagles-Rams game. What I will say is that I think it was Bill Parcells when he was coaching the New York Giants once said, "You are what your record says you are."
Yeah.
Okay. And I know a lot of people are kind of pointing to the the Commanders' victory over Detroit as an upset because Detroit was the number 1 seed playing at home. But people may forget, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, if I have this record wrong, but I think the Commanders are 14-5 now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, the won 12 games in the regular season. So, that's a pretty good football team there that beat. That's a tough draw.
Right.
You're the number 1 seed.
Exactly.
In the postseason, you're playing a team with 12 wins, okay? And technically, now they have 14 wins. So, and the Eagles are a good football team. Won, I think, 14 or 15 games in the regular, 14 games in the regular season. And then you look on the other side of the ledger, you have the number 1, number 2 seeds. So, yeah, it takes a great effort, a flawless effort, a mistake-free effort if you're going to pull an upset on the road in the divisional playoffs. And even though the Rams gave their fans a terrific ride, and Lord knows what's going on in the city of Los Angeles, those fans need this. The Eagles are the better football team. Saquon Barkley is a dynamite football player running behind arguably the best offensive line in the league. That formula clearly worked against the Rams both times.
Yeah.
He had 240 55 yards rushing the first time, 205 the second time. And again, being a former running back, Joe, I'm always going to lean more heavily toward the guy who can endure being tackled on every play,
Right.
every time he touches the ball, as being the most valuable player. I think the Eagles would have been a good team this year. I think having Saquon Barkley makes them a great team.
Right.
And as much as it pains me to say it, he is the difference. I love the fact that he wears number 26. So, I'm happy for him and the success he's had in Philadelphia. But listen, Matt Stafford, he has a Super Bowl to his credit.
Yep.
He brought the Rams back. And, Joe, you can't have the false start.
No.
Listen, you're on the 11-yard line. You can't have the false start because you've got 4 downs to score.
Right.
On the 11, okay?
Right.
Or the 14, whatever it was. You can't have the false start. You just can't. That penalty kills you. And what is really becoming something that I think gets overlooked a little bit in the National Football League, because so many of these quarterbacks are mobile and they avoid sacks.
Yeah.
You cannot have sacks in playoff games.
No.
You just can't.
No.
C.J. Stroud got sacked, 6 or 7 times for the Houston Texans on Saturday. Kansas City wins the football game. Even though the Rams had 7 sacks against the Eagles, obviously the better running team.
Yep.
That game came down to sacks.
Right.
Stafford's not mobile. He got sacked in crucial spots. One where he fumbled,
Right.
which resulted in 3 points. And you can't get sacked down when you're trying to rally and you don't have any timeouts left. It just puts you in such a difficult place, especially when this field shrinks.
Right.
You're trying to score a touchdown. The defense has no threat behind it. It's creeping up. 11 guys in the box there. You can't take a sack. You got to throw the ball at somebody's feet. You got to throw it out of bounds. Not grounding, of course. You don't want that. But you have to do whatever you can not to get sacked. And Stafford not as mobile as some other quarterbacks. Look at this. Still was covering the field and whatever. But
right.
The Rams gave a great effort. It's just very, as difficult as it is for me as a Rams fan, after getting so close, driving Puka Nacua with an incredible catch.
Yeah.
Would have been positioned to rally late when Chris Collinsworth had put the game to bed. There's nobody I would have rather seen have to say the Rams comeback was unbelievable, because I'm looking at the clock. There's a lot of time on the clock.
Yes.
When Barkley went 75. So I'm disappointed. I'm happy that the Rams had a good season and made the Final Four in the NFC, but I'm not as sick as Ravens fans are today. That's for sure.
That was brutal.
And I feel awful for Mark Andrews, Joe. And let me be a guy. Let me be a fan or a football person here just for one moment. They're NFL players. They're paid to perform.
Right.
They're paid to play. And Mark Andrews' body of work speaks for itself. And he certainly doesn't need Joby Fawcett from the Scranton Times to defend him in any way, shape, or form. I also had the same defense for Nick Singleton in the Penn State Notre Dame game. That is, believe it or not, Joe, a strangely difficult position for the tight end to try to catch the ball. He's trying to stay in bounds. He's working against his body. The ball's a little bit low. But, yeah, should he have made the catch? 1,000% he should have made the catch, and it would have been 2 points, and they go to overtime. But he didn't. But he's had a storied career and been terrific and bailed Baltimore out of a lot of sticky situations in his career. So my heart does go out for a kid and a grown man, an adult, a professional football player who, look, this is a game and a sport played by human beings, Joe.
Right.
It's not Madden. It's not a video game.
It's true. It's true. Joby, not to insult Mark Andrews right after you just said, he's human, and he is, but I'm going to cite the play that he fumbled the ball. And again, this is something that I said last week, kind of similar. I don't understand why football players don't run straight. They try to break these long thing. He had the first down. Just run straight. He's running sideways. He's a tight end.
Joe, it's because during the regular season you're able to do that and get away with it. And sometimes you create a spectacular play that gets on ESPN or SportsCenter. And again, he's trying to rally his team, and it didn't pay off. And it takes Joe, do you realize how perfect of defensive play you have to punch that ball out?
I actually don't.
Clearly it happened.
Right.
Clearly it happened, and he
Right.
did it.
Right.
So to me, I think, yeah, as bad as it was that Mark Andrews fumbled there, you have to give that defender a lot. Now, if he fumbles like Kyron Williams did, where nobody hit him, I mean, Jalen Carter did come in late and hit him. These are professional athletes, Joe. It takes a great defensive play a lot of times to jar that ball loose. So we can't just dismiss the great play that the defender made for Buffalo. But yes, Mark Andrews had a tough final 8 minutes of that game. There's no question about it.
Unfortunately, but
well, if you're a Baltimore fan, unfortunately,
that's true.
If you're a Buffalo fan, you're regaling in the fact that you're playing Kansas City again.
I was gonna say I know a lot of Bills fans who are pretty happy today. So, but yeah, no, I'm happy you said that, Joe, because it's interesting. You see all these, punching I feel like people punch the ball out. It looks so easy. They just make it look so easy as a defender to punch that ball out. But
yeah, no, it's not.
Yeah,
it's just I was not a defensive player. Don't forget. I was
right.
I was putting a coat on the sideline during defensive practice.
You were apparently getting lit up by a lot of our athletes' fathers.
That's accurate.
Unfortunately. But yeah, Joby, it was interesting, the NFL. So now we've got, Chiefs, Bills, and Eagles, Commanders. And like you said, Joby, about the Commanders, they are, this is kind of, they flew under the radar only because they had a weird stretch during the regular season where Jaden Daniels got hurt and they kind of skidded a little bit. But now he seems very healthy. He's a hell of a quarterback, and this team is playing really, really well. So it should be interesting next week. Should have 2 really good football games.
Yeah, Joe, now that I no longer have any rooting interest, I could probably enjoy the games.
That's why, that's what was nice for me this week, Joby. I didn't.
So I literally jumped out of the couch when Puka Nacua caught that ball. And I anybody who was in the room will tell you, I said, "Oh my God, they got a shot!"
Yeah, yes, exactly. That was a great catch.
It's just such a wave of emotion as a fan.
I felt for you. Obviously, I was thinking about you throughout that whole game.
Good luck to the Eagles fans and the Philadelphia Eagles, of course, assistant coach and defensive coordinator Vic Fangio from Dunmore.
Absolutely. Came
through in the clutch there. Jalen Carter, always nice of a first top 5 pick to drop to number 18 or 19 when the Eagles got him.
That's how it goes, Joby. That's how it goes. Hey, the Packers could have drafted TJ Watt, but
well,
why do you want him?
It's undersized, Joe.
That's right. Why do you want him when you could draft Kevin King?
Can't play in NFL. He's undersized.
So, Joby, I think that wraps it up for us. We've crossed the hour mark.
Great show again, Joe. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed speaking with Sophia Talutto, our athlete of the week, and I've got a very busy week ahead. I got a surprise for you too later on in the week. I think you'll enjoy.
Oh, I'm excited for that, Joby. Well, first of all, I just want to mention that sometimes our podcast cuts off, so it could just cut out at any moment and it'll be hilarious. But anyway, I want to thank Sophia Talutto again for joining the show. She was our athlete of the week for the Times-Tribune, brought you by the Lehigh Valley Orthopedic Institute. So thank you so much for joining us, Sophia. Follow us on our website, theTimes-Tribune.com/sports. Follow us on Instagram, Times-Tribune Sports, on Facebook as well. Follow Joby, the Times-Tribune, on Facebook. He shares everything that we do. And yeah, we'll bring you more highlights, more stories, more everything. So be sure to follow along for